All right, so talk to us, you guys, about an area of math that you like learned about this year that was really impactful for you, like something you really felt you really got it or had an aha moment.
Oh, I'm starting. Oh, okay. So, in math, I feel like the fractions unit really helped me because in grade 8 and grade 7, I didn't understand fractions, and so I just didn't try at all with them. I didn't bother, and then this year, I really learned how to ask questions when I needed help, and then so I understood way more than I did before, and yeah. Still.
Today from doing exponents, French. I learned a lot about how to find different ways about how doing stuff and looking at it in different specific ways how to find a solution.
So what did you discover, Finn?
Well, I discovered, today I found the law of multiplication of exponents. So for multiplication, you just for the two top, not the base of it, but the actual exponents, you just add them together to equal. So say if it was 5 exponents 5 and then times 5 exponent 2, it would just be 5 exponent 7 instead of just doing all of math.
Yeah, so I guess I forget what class it is, but one class we kind of went back to the basics and just did multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division of fractions. And I feel even with simple numbers, after you kind of figure out these, everything else is kind of just formulas, and then after you can get the formula down, it's pretty basic, I guess.
Does someone tell you those formulas, Peter, or do you kind of how do you figure those out?
Well, I feel you just start with the most basic numbers, 1 plus 1, and then if you have fractions or something, you keep the same formulas, but you just do it a little bit more complicated, and I guess, yeah.
So then do you figure it out yourself as you go along?
Yeah, usually, with obviously help, but yeah.
Groups.
Mm-hmm.
Learning different strategies than just one way to do it. With the multiplication of fractions, if you, I hate the butterfly method. It takes too much time. Me too. But the kiss and flip, it's way faster. Same math.
Yeah.
I like that we learn more than one way to do it.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything that was said. Everybody kind of touched on a point that I was gonna say, and then I didn't. I really like the kiss and flip method as well, just because it's really simple for the way that I learn stuff, instead of going, I don't really understand that part.
So you guys have in front of you what do you guys call these?
Meaningful notes.
Meaningful notes. So I'd love for you to talk about what are meaningful notes and why are they meaningful?
Well, you don't have to write down everything that's said or on the board. You just write down what is important to you.
It doesn't have to just be say writing down exactly what the formula is or something like that. Some people, and for me, I go into different places, so I'd sometimes do drawings for some specific stuff, or sometimes just do random words or anything just for me to remember something. But yeah, I don't know, that's me though.
You don't have to write down what word for word what the teacher said. You can write down your version, your interpretation of it, and put it on your notes so you can remember specifically what you want to remember in the future.
Yeah, so I said earlier, the simple part, this was what I wrote down in that class. It's just basically the formulas and an example for subtraction, multiplication, and division for basic fractions, and then after that you can basically just build on it. So it's just something that if I have a big fraction thing that I have to figure out, I can just look at this and do it individually, and it may take longer, but then eventually with practice it just gets more of a routine and easier.
This is the first year you've done purposeful notes or meaningful notes?
Yep.
Yeah. So how has that transition been? What did it start and how did it go?
I feel we did some version of it in grade 8, when you couldn't write down word for word what the teacher was saying.
Didn't she have a lot of specifics for us to write down though?
Yeah.
They wanted us to.
Yes, and so if you couldn't get it all down, you would just put a short summary of what you put on there, and then I feel it's really more useful this way.
It's more helpful if you just write the stuff that you need work on and write it in a way you remember than if it's different on the board and you don't understand it. But the explanation the teacher gives, you understand.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
And I like this compared to last year, like when you'd have something just on the board and then I guess the teacher would read it to you and you just have to like copy down as much as you can. But the problem with that, I feel like you kind of have to pick out what you think is the most important. But with meaningful notes, like the teacher kind of gives you help and like what's more important so that you're not have a bunch of useless stuff that's not going to help you with the rest of the classes, where meaningful notes is kind of down to the important stuff so you can build off it rather than having to like figure out what the important stuff is.
And like asking, like with me, like I'm asking questions during when we're doing it too, like collaborating with others too, just to see what they have down too. And it's like we're not taking down each other's, like we're not copying each other, we're just building off of each other's ideas and then using that to make it our own.
Yeah, for me, in my notes, I don't really write like words down much. I mostly just write down the equation with the answer, because I'm just looking back on that. It helps me try and figure out my thought process. But if there's something like I messed up on while I was learning it, I make sure to write that down. Like with the kiss and flip method, the first time I did it, I flipped both of the numbers, but it's only the second one that you flip. So I wrote that down in one of my notes.
We did the same.
Yeah, and I feel like with meaningful notes, you don't feel like you're missing anything. And you don't feel like you need to go back to the slideshow and copy down everything. Because you feel like you're missing something that's going to show up later, and then you feel like kind of guilty-ish.
Yeah.
And it's a positive that you don't have to like go through all your writing and be like, oh my god, where the heck is that one note?
Yeah.
You can be like, I have it right on this page, I know where it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you guys use a navigator to like check your understanding. So you pick questions from like different like difficulty levels.
Yeah.
How do you find that? How does that help you understand where you're at and what your next steps might be?
Well, yeah, I really love that because it applies for everybody. So I feel like anyone can just pick a place, like start at the easiest question, and then wherever you are, it works for everyone, and it's not just one level where only the people who know like intermediate or whatever, then they can only do that, and then the people under it have to like work to figure out. So I feel like it's great because you're also doing it individually, so you're not worrying about where everyone's else at, and you're just focusing on your own learning, and you set your own goals that are achievable rather than like going with the classes, I guess, goals.
You can like work your way up to the advanced and not have to like struggle if the teacher just starts with the advanced and you're not there yet.
Yeah. And if like, especially if your friends are like at like a higher, not a higher, but like understand it more, I guess, like they're just at a different point than you are, and you feel like you have to keep up with them, and now you don't have to keep up with them because it's individual work. Because I used to struggle with that a lot. Like my friends are here and I'm not, and it made me feel really bad. But
That whole concept of, oh, what number are you on?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm on number 2. How about you?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if they are like further ahead of you, it's nice because they can go back and help you out.
True, they can.
And then
You
you
should
can like
ask me more.
But you guys are at different like levels, and then if you need help on this,
you can
then
move
here.
down and go back up.
Yeah.
And then like with me, like I like actually, cause I actually love it because you can almost like what I did for the first booklet. There's a lot of pages, but I went to the last page and looked at like the hardest ones to do or like the more advanced ones, and then I made a goal to get as far as I can to reach that point. And then you can also like make connections with some. So like when I went to the farthest one, I looked at like different ways how to do that one, and then go back to the more basic ones and like look at that one and be like, okay, so if that's one way how to do it, then maybe I can do it this way.
And it's also good where like in a way the hardest questions is just a bunch of small easy questions, so I like it that there's lots of examples, so like you can just do basic questions for 2 weeks or something, and then you master it, and now you know how to do just basic multiplication, subtraction, and then when you get to the more complicated ones, you can just break it down into basic questions and then still get the answer right.
Coupe call.
So it gives you like a sense of achievement, like yes, I can do this now, and I can move on to something harder.
I like it too because if you don't know what level you're at, you can like figure out too. You don't have to do all the questions. Like Madame Harding says, just do like 5 on the basic, and if you can do 5 consistently and they're correct, go to the intermediate, and if you can get 5 all right, go to the advanced. Don't have to do all the questions if you're consistently getting them correct.
Okay, for me, my biggest aha moment was with multiplication. For whatever reason, I couldn't figure it out, like, at all. But multiplication is just timesing the top number and then the bottom number. And just for whatever reason, my brain could not piece those two together. And I did not know how to do multiplication with fractions for a while until we learned it again. That's about it. Somebody else can go.
Yeah, I guess I go. So I guess it was one of the first classes after we got like that book with the questions, and I guess it kind of helped me realize that I'm not trying to like keep up with my friends, and I was like trying to do the basic questions and like even having trouble with those, and then I was like, well, this isn't very fun. Like I can't even do the basic questions. And then I guess one class we did it, and we kind of just figured out just like the basics, like I said earlier, on how to do it. And then I started getting the basic questions, and then I was like, well, I'm just gonna check out the hardest one. And then after I looked at it, everything was basically just like the same version of basic questions, but just lots of them. And then I was like, one class I couldn't even do the basic ones, and then the next one suddenly I knew how to do the hardest ones just by learning kind of the basics and the simple parts of it.
I guess my aha moment was when you finally get into like the rhythm of like you're doing the questions and like you're getting some wrong, but then you finally realize what you're doing wrong and it just clicks, and and then you can just do them all consistently.
Same for me, yeah.
Okay, my aha moment was, I think it was like a month ago almost. I don't know. It was a while ago. And we had some teachers come in, and we started doing fraction squares, fraction triangles. And so one of the teachers said, what if we cut it this way? And then we can solve it like this. And it was something like 1/2 of a sixth. And then suddenly we were about to move on to the next one, but and then my mind just put together, what if we cut it into thirds instead of all the way down? What if we cut it into thirds? And that was like a really big moment for me. Like, oh my god! I think it was actually the other way around. It was thirds, and then I was like, what if we cut it in half? So I cut it in half, and it was it was like pretty big moment for me. And then yeah, it was like a different method. It was cool.
My aha moment was probably, one of them was today. I was like redoing exponents, and pretty much we were doing the same thing over again, and I found like it was pretty much just repetition of doing almost the same base and just changing the number on top. And as we were going, I just noticed that if you just add the top number, it's the exact same, and it just makes it just simpler for yourself. So that was pretty much my aha moment of just like after repetition and like giving it some tries, you can like just persevere and see different ways of how doing it, different strategies.